Verizon down again. Everything to know about the latest network outage. This story is from Jacob. It's techradar.com. I don't know. There's probably about 30 of these articles over the last couple of weeks. Says here that it's only been 10 days since Verizon's major network outage took out service across the U.S. But the big red-themed carrier suffered yet another service disruption, an outage on October 10th. Down detector had been fluctuating for over 24 hours, but spiked at 1 p.m. with over 15,000 reported outages. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be 1,500 or 15,000, but says this resulted in Verizon customers experiencing no connectivity bars, trouble making or receiving calls, and even spotting SOS at the top of their phones. Reported outages were across the U.S., with a larger number on the East and West Coast. Verizon eventually confirmed that it was experiencing a network issue in the Great Plains region, naming Nebraska and Minnesota, among other states. The carrier confirmed resolution for the issues at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The quote from Verizon: "Some customers in a few states in the Midwest experienced a brief service disruption today. Engineers were able to identify and resolve the issue, and it was restored by 3:30 p.m." Okay. All right. So we learned about the scale of this second outage. We learned about some of the issues people were having. I did have people commenting in my video saying that their phone wasn't SOS. So I know that for a fact. I'm not really sure about the scale, because typically when you have national outages, you start seeing hundreds of thousands of reports on Down Detector. And I don't think we saw that scale here, B. So it's good to see that it was not only not impacting a lot of people, but it was also short-lived. Feels like it was just a few hours. Feels like it wasn't that many people or in that many locations. So I think whatever damage that first network outage was a couple weeks ago was much worse than this one. This one feels a little bit more subdued, a smaller scale, and not that big compared to the first one. So what's your take on all this?
I agree. It seems like the media is just kind of searching for stuff. Because this, I guess, is just generating clicks, and it's always good to talk about negative stuff like this. It brings out the people who want to know about it. So whatever. I agree. The scale doesn't seem that large. This doesn't seem like a quote unquote nationwide outage. I don't know if they meant 1,500 to 15,000. I don't know. With 330 million people in the country, and counting. And I wouldn't say 15,000 people is a nationwide outage. That's ridiculous to me. And it just seems like again, the media is just searching for clicks, searching for something to talk about. And what better to talk about than bringing people around the water hole to complain about whatever perceived issue it is that they think that they have. So I don't know. You know, Transparency is always a good thing. I definitely encourage it, but this seems to be a little bit exaggerated from a scale standpoint. Again, 1,500 to 15,000, I don't know, but out of 330 million people, I mean, it's not even 10%. So I don't think that that's warranting of a nationwide anything. So that's my opinion.
So B, there's a contingency of folks who have really started to begin to question the validity of the claims that Verizon continues to be the most reliable network. I think what they're citing is the fact that there are frequent network related issues that are, I don't want to say national in scale. I mean, we've seen some pretty big ones, but some of them have been small and controlled. And I think that they've found the resolutions in a timely fashion. I think outages, if we're being objective, outages happen from time to time and they occur on all networks. And I want to hold all carriers accountable for this. But there are some people who obviously question that self claim that Verizon is the most reliable network when they see multiple outages within a couple of weeks, a very large one or one that's extensive or a long time frame. I mean, how do you respond to that kind of sentiment from the consumer that say, I pay X amount of dollars and my phone didn't work for 10 or 15 hours. It didn't work on my way to work, didn't work while I was at work, didn't work on my drive home from work. And because of the frequency, even if they are some smaller ones, now they're saying that maybe Verizon isn't as reliable as they claim they are. What's your response to that?
Well, I certainly want to acknowledge people's experience. Their experience is their own and it is their reality. So I don't want to cast any aspersions on that. But at the same time, I just would challenge everybody to look at the data. Look at the frequency of these perceived or, whatever experienced outages, whatever they may have been, and compare their frequency with that of their competitors. And you tell me who's the one or who are the carriers that are having the most articles written about outages and who's the one that is not. You're talking about over the last, for example, 10 days, according to this article, you've had one or more outages. How many times has that happened this year for this particular company compared to its competitors? I would say, based on what we know, that there's far less network disturbances with Verizon than there is with other competitors. As far as pricing is concerned, I think that narrative is a little bit overblown when you think about the fact that there's never been a time where network connectivity has been more competitively priced. I think there was a time when you're talking about a $50 difference from carrier to carrier. That's no longer the case. We're talking about a $20 difference. So I think that narrative is kind of tired. It's not accurate anymore. I think Verizon's pricing has come down. And that's a good thing for everybody. I think their competitor, particularly their cheapest one, their pricing has come up. So the delta between the three companies is not nearly as big as it used to be. And you can kind of substantiate that by the amount of traffic that we see on all of these networks. Everybody's using these things, so it can't possibly be but so expensive that people don't have the ability to afford it. When you think about the fact that Verizon has the most customers in the industry, they can possibly be at a situation where they've priced themselves out of the ability to be able to retain and then even set themselves up to grow. It just doesn't make sense to me. For anyone who's looking at the data, it shouldn't make sense to anyone who's looking at the data either. So, again, I'm a data guy. I don't really do the feelings stuff because feelings can be very misleading. Look at the information that we see. There's far less complaints about outages and things of that nature with this particular company that we're discussing compared to others. Same thing when it comes to, the unfortunate natural disasters that we see. You see networks that perform very, very well compared to its competitors. And then you see other networks that struggle for weeks and even months to return back to, what their baseline network performance was before these catastrophic events. I think Verizon has led the industry for a long time, according to the data, and I don't really see that changing. So,
All right, so I'll throw this back at you. The largest outage and the longest outage is from T-Mobile back in 2021. I think it was in the summer. The number of outages since that time, T-Mobile has been very, very good. So they're doing pretty nice when it comes to network reliability. AT&T this year, I think they have done the worst in terms of network reliability. They've had multiple outages and breaches and a very extensive outage. I think maybe two of them that were pretty large scale. So very recently, I'd say AT&T has kind of been the worst. But now with Verizon, we had a big one, and then we're seeing kind of like a small one here and there, but their frequency isn't really that bad. So I think we have to remain objective. You guys got to make sure that you follow along to the number of outages, the frequency in which they're occurring, how much time is happening between them, and the scale, like the magnitude of how many folks are impacted and to what level they're impacted. Sometimes the outages impact calling, sometimes they impact data, but maybe not both, right? So they're all parts to this. And then sometimes it's market to market and, it's not national or what have you. There's just a lot going on there. It's hard to quantify these things, but I want to give a shout out to T-Mobile for doing better. Historically they haven't been that, so they're improving. I think Verizon has been responsive to fix their issues, whatever they have been. And I think AT&T, for what it's worth, they're a network that's in kind of transition, right? Moving a lot of markets from Nokia to Ericsson. They've got to work through those things. It's not an easy time right now as carriers upgrade networks, change things, and you've got this extreme weather. I think those are all good points, B. So nice job with that.